So that video showed sort of a moment that the gangster known as Mr. Flashy, and we have since named him as Glen Ward, was fighting on the streets. It was taken in 2022 and it was a shocking video when it came out. Of course, he wasn't nameable at that point. You could either not identify anyone in the video and just say that Mr. Flashy was involved in this, or you'd identify people in the video and not say who he was. But we knew.
Yeah.
And the police obviously knew. And it was just so blatant and...
It was, yeah. And it was kind of, I think you were sort of mentioning it before, you know, it was like, it's only been in recent years that these young thugs have started to these videos have started to go around where they seem to have disregard for what people can see or for like them being implicated in certain things. And obviously we know with the Gucci gang kind of heralded this social media stuff where they're constantly putting up videos of them, of bragging stuff and fighting and all that. So it was all in that context as well. But yeah, it was broad daylight, very blatant, very brazen. And there was a group of them involved, but I suppose Mr. Flashy and Glen Ward and his brother Eric were charged with that. So we did do the video at the time, but it was blurred and it was obviously just shown, you know, this is Dublin gang boss Mr. Flashy. It wasn't really enough at the time to sort of warrant him being named, or even though he was before the courts anyway, but you know, like it was, he has 22 previous convictions and this is the kind of thing he would have been up to, and obviously it's only in recent times with the serious firearms conviction that we could name him then.
And here he is at his work. But actually when we're talking about that, we're trying to remember when it was that this sort of the video footage of events and of things started going up and messages then that were sent around WhatsApp. And so if we go back to 2018, 2019, 2020, let's think about the Drogheda feud.
Yes.
Of course, there was, you know, wasn't there call outs and rivalries during that? Paul Crosby videoed and recorded himself making a mocking phone call to Owen Maguire. And then there was a request that video footage, which was put out around the murder of Cian Mulready Woods, was not looked at. I don't think it actually was from this country, because that, even when that video footage started, sometimes it would be legitimate actually happening real time on the street corners. This video footage of Glen Ward, we know where it is. We know the streets. We know this is happening in Dublin. We know the individuals. Some of the stuff would be put out, claimed to be happening in Ireland or claimed to be happening in the UK. And it could have happened in Mexico.
Yeah, exactly. But this was very clearly fingerless, and it was outside of shopping centres. So, you know, it was like there was no attempt to hide it. And it was it was August, so, but it was still in the daylight hours. And it was, you know, like there you can see people going by. You can see a woman coming out to have a look as well. So, yeah, so it was very clearly Dublin, and it was very clearly him trying to sort of make his mark. And, you know, you can see him, even though he was convicted of violent disorder and possession of a bicycle saddle, you can see him really, like, you know, going at the gang, at the group in the video as well. So, you know, it does appear to be an attempt at a show of strength.
Now, he was 32 at that stage. He's 32 now.
So it was nearly 3 years ago.
So he was 29.
Yeah, so he wasn't a really, like, young man either. Like, he's obviously been doing the rounds since around... We've been writing about him since maybe 2016, 2017. So, you know, he was well known as, although he hadn't been named, he was well known for his... And
his brother Eric O'Driscoll is 23 now, so he was only 20. He's significantly
very
younger than him, but this is the second time they've appeared in court together.
Exactly, yeah. And I suppose, so this incident happened before they were charged, and it's been dealt with after the firearms incident, but it's been hanging around the courts for a couple of years now. So they were dealing with the firearms situation first, and we know that was, which allowed us to name Mr. Flashy. Well, we named him because he'd been identified in a cab document, but the conviction gave us the leeway to do so. He was no longer before the courts. Exactly, yeah. So he himself and Eric got jail sentences of, I think he got 5.5 years, and Eric got similar for possession of these firearms, these serious machine gun weapons, and they were seen in videos showing them off and going to fire them as well. So they were jailed for that, and they're currently in jail for that. So then this case has come up, and this week Glen Ward, aka Mr. Flashy, received this 18-month suspended sentence for a violent disorder and being armed with a bicycle saddle. And you can see in the video there, he's basically himself and his brother and another associate are going at a group of lads during this daylight incident. And then
Cardiff's Bridge Road,
Finglas, yeah.
Caught on camera, literally.
Caught on camera, yeah. And then his brother Eric actually got 2 years with 18 months of that suspended. So basically he has 6 months tagged onto his firearm sentence. And that was because he was also prosecuted simultaneously for a driving incident. So basically he was being chased by guards and it was said to be extremely dangerous. He mounted footpaths and there was a lot of innocent people around. He claimed that this was in November, so this was wasn't the same time, but it was close enough to it. And he basically said in his defence that he had been coming from a wake of a friend and he was very emotional. But the judge obviously gave him 6-month jail sentence with the rest suspended for that as well. So.
And of course what you can see from these incidents were that they were key targets of the Gardaí at this time because, there was a lot of activity, there was a lot of criminality swirling around them, there was feuding, there was kind of fears that these things were going to spiral out of control. So they were being, watched probably a lot of the time by the Gardaí, who were also trying to build cases against them in order really, while the sentences for both of them are ultimately quite short, they will take them off the streets for a period of time.
Yeah.
And that can allow, as would have been seen way in the past with some of the terrorist cells, even to lock a few members up for, 3 years would be enough time to break up the sort of the cell structure. And criminal gangs operate with similar structures around them.
Yeah, of course.
In court, was there anything heard about how they're getting on in prison?
Yeah, so we haven't been able to name the prison he's in because we've previously written how, he was in 23 lockup. There was threats against him. There was actually in his sentencing for the firearms offences, there was a list of names given in that he should be separated from when he's released from jail. And we've written as well that he has basically been pushed aside by his Gucci gang, which is also a name for his gang, and that he's been, there was a split in that gang. So we know that in prison, he's obviously, being watched and is
quite isolated.
Quite isolated, yeah. And that he's been keeping his head down. It was heard how he's going to the gym every day, and that he has a child and a long-term partner. I don't think I've heard that before. And then it was also described how he has 6 siblings. He's the third, so he goes in the middle. And that he trained as a mechanic, which I also hadn't heard either.
No.
Because I feel like with these, the way with the younger sort of, even though we gave him that name, Mr. Flashy, and it sounds a certain way, they do have a different way of behaving than maybe there doesn't seem to be as many redeeming features as you may have gotten with them. The older criminals who obviously their offences can't be excused, but they might be known in their communities as a certain way, whereas he just seems to cause trouble.
So here he is, he's a guy with a child, a partner, obviously.
So you don't hear that. Yeah, that's what I mean. So you just hear about him running riot, but you don't actually hear the sort of person behind it. So we did get a bit more insight into that, and that he is attempting to keep his head down. So
you wonder now, he's 32 years of age at this point, you're going to keep this up? Or are you going to lean back into sort of some of the assets you have there, being your trade, your relationship, etc.?
Yeah.
He was somebody who was kind of schooled as a younger guy by
Trevor Byrne, who would have been senior in the Kinahan cartel. And actually, I think he sort of in a way benefited by the feud, Mr. Flashy, because Trevor Byrne was arrested it was the murder of Eddie Hutch, wasn't it, in the days after the Regency Hotel bloodbath, and he fled, and then he sort of had been kind of taken under the arm of Trevor Byrne, and when Byrne fled, he sort of stepped into that breach.
Yeah. He got the big job.
Yeah, and it was actually because Ken Foy was the first to write it, Mr. Flashy in the Herald, and it was within the year kind of the Regency that he started to sort of become under Garda radar, or that we became aware that he was on Garda radar. So he would have been very young then, like early 20s. So he stepped into that breach, and I think that was sort of what enabled him to maybe grow in this sort of feared profile, because those links to the Kinahan cartel were there.
There must be a lot of pressure then as you're maybe promoted as such, you try and connect it to the legitimate world of careers and stuff. pressure when you're promoted, pressure to be a particular way, pressure to continue being this tough guy who'll rip his shirt off and, take a bicycle saddle to anybody who comes near him.
Yeah.
He has to protect his turf, all the rest of it. You would wonder that is a stint in prison something that is opportunistic for him as well to grow as a person, that, those pressures, okay, maybe he's locked up 23 hours a day, his enemies in prison, etc. But there is a chance, there is a small chance that within that system he could...
Possibly,
am I dreaming here?
Because he has 22 previous convictions, but this is going to be his actual first proper stint in jail. And, he's obviously 23-hour lockup. He's not favoured by many, it seems like, because of the restrictions on naming the jail and the fact that there has been threats there. So this is his opportunity, and I suppose some would say that people do take those opportunities, but then this is also a guy who's sort of built his reputation on fear and not being very well got in the community, and kind of allowing that aura of fear to build up. So you would question, and also there's always mitigation, even with the worst of cases you hear mitigation, and he does, it's a fact he has a child and a partner and he has a trade, but that didn't stop him getting into it. So you wonder, is it gonna, is it going to encourage him to get out?
He's an opportunity himself now to make a decision, has he?
Exactly, yeah, he does. But I suppose...
See where he goes with that.
Exactly, but I suppose we've written about this before, and, this isn't just somebody who kind of fell into it. He seemed to sort of... maybe got lucky, but has
gravitated towards
it. And as we said, he got the name because of his penchant for that lifestyle. We've have loads of pictures of him with the man bags and the Gucci caps and stuff. So, and he was a serious player in that world of gangland and everything goes with it. So,
he might at the least learn when he's lying there in his cell looking at the ceiling at night that maybe, posing for pictures and standing for videos and the whole world of photography hasn't done him many favours.
No, maybe he'd be better to be called Mr. Nobody or something.
Exactly.
Those criminals that nobody knows what they look like.
Well, it would certainly, everything that sort of happens to him that lands him in prison and with conviction seems to have some reach back to him posing or being filmed.
Exactly. And then it allows us to write about him when we can write about him. So, be careful what you put up on social media because
absolutely, let him.
This one, the world's always watching.
Listen, Eimear, thanks a million.
Thanks, Nicola.
I'm Nicola Tallant and you're watching Crime World, a podcast about criminals, drugs and the underworld in Ireland and across the globe. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you can be the first to watch all our latest episodes. You can also listen wherever you get your podcasts.